Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Public Safety Building. We are actually in the fire training room. To my left is Bob Tuffer, Vice Chair of the Wolfeboro Budget Committee. To my right is Chief Tom Zotti of the Wolfeboro Fire Rescue Department. And to his right is my captain, Executive Officer, Captain Mark Livie, and I, of course, am Chief Dean Rondeau, Chief of Police of the Wolfeboro Police Department. So we're here today to kind of go through a virtual tour of both the fire side of the public safety building and the police side of the public safety building. But before we do that, I just want to kind of give a foundation, if you will, of why we're doing this and why it's so important. And this really centers around Warrant Article 23, which is the warrant article dealing with engineering, construction grade drawings for construction of a proposed police station on North Main Street. And I know there's been a lot of misinformation or disinformation that's been bantered about on Facebook. So please understand, I'm not going to engage in any type of discussion on Facebook. Or any social media. We'll put our information out at public meetings or in the newspapers or some other media outlet, but we won't do something like that on Facebook, because I think it's easy and prone to run afoul during in a venue like that. There's very few controls. So first of all, let me say that this building was built circa 1972. Chief, am I right? Yeah, in that neighborhood. And originally this was built to house the Wolfeboro Fire Rescue Department, and literally at the last minute it was decided that they were going to move the Wolfeboro Police Department in here. At that time, the police department was commanded by Stan Stevens, and the police department took half of the building and the fire department took the other half of the building, and that's the way it's been for the last 50 or so years, or in that neighborhood. If it's not 50 years, it might be 49 years, or it might be 48 years, but it's in that neighborhood, and that's a respectable neighborhood. That's a long time to be in one facility. And as one can imagine, over 48 to 50 years, fire science has changed, police science has changed, the needs of the town have changed, the size of the police department and the Wolfeboro Fire Rescue Department has changed, equipment has changed. The methodology about how we conduct business has changed, and one only need think about what it was like to be a police officer in 1972 versus what it's like to be a police officer in 2022, or a firefighter in 1972 or 1973 versus what it's like to be a firefighter in 2022. So having said that, a lot has changed. Codes have changed. And one of the things that everybody here at this table does is hold the town accountable for codes of some flavor or fashion, whether it's building code or electric code or health code or fire code. Codes are important. It's also important for us to follow suit and follow codes as well. Having said that, it's difficult sometimes when the building they were built in has outgrown the codes. So that is something that I think we want to keep in the back of our mind as well. Quite simply put, the building has really outgrown the needs and desires of the police department and then of the Wolfeboro Fire Rescue Department. We need to conduct some serious remediation on the building. We need to upgrade the building, and those aren't very easy tasks to accomplish. And but this building is in serious need of a lot of tender loving care and renovation. And this was identified in a master plan that was published, I want to say, in 2008. In the town's master plan, this was identified as a need, and I remember that. I remember that they wanted to have the public safety building done as a project in 2022. Well, that's this year. Now, in 2016, I began as a captain. I was the executive officer at the time. I began alerting all of my superiors that, hey, we have this master plan, we need to kind of follow the master plan, and we need to start pushing this football down the road and get things identified, because we knew it was going to be very expensive. So I know the police department, anyway, in earnest, has been pushing this issue since 2016. And Bob, you were saying that it was been a CIP issue for how many years now?
Yes, hi, Chief. I started on the CIP committee in 2010, and it goes back almost that far. The public safety building. Back then, we had a number of buildings that needed to be repaired. Town hall was in very bad shape. The library was in very bad shape, and the public safety building needed renovation also. So it has been around for some time. The CIP committee at the time felt that we could not handle all of the issues since we were coming out of a recession. So we decided that this was the least of the worst candidates. This was not in the worst shape, and we decided to push it out. Now we feel, I'm no longer on the CIP committee, but I shared this committee with you. I was on the building, the public safety subcommittee building, and I feel that it's time to get moving on a public safety building project. Number one being the police station. Also, back 10 years ago, the CIP committee acknowledged the fact that we had a town in very bad shape, and we had a great deal of debt service. We had about $31 million of debt service. So we made a plan. We put our heads together and we made a plan. We decided to get away from bonding, spend more cash on projects, create capital reserve accounts, and do everything we could to get away from bonding. So 10 years later, we managed to get a number of projects done. The library's done, the town hall is done. We had tennis courts nobody could play tennis on, they're done. We have a new ski lodge up at the Abenaki Lodge. We did quite a bit of work. The roads are in terrific shape, much better shape than they were 10 years ago. And our plan worked because our debt service now is a little under $25 million. It's about $6 million less than it was 10 years ago. So, and also, I feel very comfortable with this now, with this project going forward, because the state of New Hampshire has a guideline where debt service should be no more than 3% of the assessed value of a town. And the Wolfeboro is assessed at $2.4 billion approximately. So 3% of that would be $72 million. So at 25 or a little under $25 million, we are assessed at, we are at maybe 1% of assessed value in debt service. So we are well within the state guidance on debt service, and the projects we do going forward, including the police station and the renovation of this building for the fire department going forward, the money we bond will still be well within the guidelines of the state of New Hampshire. Also, we like what we're dealing with right now in terms of interest rates. Debt service is very reasonable these days. We do realize that we have been facing some inflationary times over the past year or so, and the Federal Reserve Bank is considering some interest rate hikes over the next year or possibly over a year. However, nothing I have read has indicated that those interest rate hikes are going to be great in any way, shape, or form. So I feel comfortable that any debt service that or any bonding we do with this project will also bring us a reasonable interest rate. I believe that to be the case. So we would start this program with Article 23 next month, and that's to get construction grade bid documents. It's a $300,000 warrant article, and $225,000 of it would come from taxation, and the other 75,000 is sitting in a capital reserve account that can be used towards this warrant article. So I recommend that everybody in Wolfeboro vote for this warrant article, and then next year we can get to work on the staff and the front office, the town manager and the finance director can put a warrant article together to build a new police station up on North Main Street. So gentlemen, with that, I wish you the best of luck with this, and Chief, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, sir. So everything Bob Tuffer said in a nutshell is absolutely 100% accurate. It's spot on. That from the financial standpoint, that's really where we stand. And we stand in right now on pretty good footing. I would say that right now with the bond rates as low as they are, this is absolutely a time to tackle a project like this. This is a very, very good time to look at bonding major infrastructure repair projects. Now, you're looking at this room, and this is the fire side conference room, training room, and if you could just pan the camera around, and this room looks really nice. This room looks really, really nice. It's probably one of the nicer rooms that we have in the building. It's because it was just remodeled. It was just remodeled. And but as you see, it's serving a multitude of purposes. On behind me to my left oblique, you're going to see some exercise bicycles. You're going to see some other equipment laying around the room, and it's because that this room is serving dual purpose. Now that's good, but a year ago this room didn't look like this, and there was a lot of hard work and effort and expense that went into rebuilding this room. The rest of the fire station and the rest of the police station don't look as good as this. This was long overdue, and a lot of it, and you'll see the TVs on the walls, was done to help us deal with mitigate the COVID-19 pandemic, so we could take conferences in here and do a lot of information sharing and meetings via video conferencing and go-to meetings and Zoom meetings and all those things that we're all familiar with. So having said that, I just want to say that in 2017 or thereabouts, Dave Owen, the town manager at the time, was the first to get the public safety building committee formed together. Myself, Bob Tuffer, the fire chief, the captain, some citizens were on that, some members of the police commission were on there. I know there was another member of the budget committee that was on there. That was Bob Lohman, and at least two members of the Board of Selectmen were on there. And we sat down and we began to tackle the very serious business of a public safety building. What should it look like? Where should it go? And those meetings continued in earnest all through COVID-19 and all through 2017, 2018, 2019, all the way to present. And the plan right now, I think, is fairly sound. And the plan calls for the police department to essentially move into a new facility on North Main Street at what we call the old water tower site. And for portions of this fire station to be immediately remediated because they're in need of immediate care and restoration, and then a phased approach to building or rebuilding or reconstructing, if you will, whatever term you want to use, building out the fire station to get it to where it needs to be. And I'm going to turn this over now to Chief Tom Zotti so he can describe a little bit about that. Chief?
Thank you. I think from the fire rescue perspective, there's maybe a little bit of background we want to clarify, for lack of a better term. I think when people hear us talk about space needs, I think a lot of people immediately, their thoughts go to, they need more room for the trucks. Not a false statement. It is to some degree true, but it's not the prime driver of our space needs on the fire rescue side. We actually have significantly fewer apparatus than we had 50 years ago. As the technology has improved and the capabilities of individual apparatus has improved, we've downsized the fleet noticeably. It's still a concern, but it's not, again, our prime driver. What is is the spaces we use, for example, for training, like the room we're sitting in. In large part, it's due to, we talked about this building going online in 1973-4 timeframe. Well, at that point, I think it's fair to say in our society at the time, nobody really envisioned a lot of women in the fire service. Well, that's changed, obviously, and it's a good thing. However, this building is not set up for separate shower facilities, separate sleeping facilities, and that sort of thing. It's not set up for a lot of emergency type scenarios where we need to decon somebody after an incident or after some issue. We make do, we'll get it done, but it's not always pretty. We have managed this far, but I think it's fair to say that as our mission has changed, as the town's needs have changed, as the town has grown, as the summer population has continued to grow, we've essentially outgrown the building. Now, we'll talk about specifics, but from our perspective, allowing us to take over the space in the entire building addresses a number of problems, and both on the police side with a new facility and on our end as well. We'll get into it as this goes on. There have been a number of scenarios studied, and some of them have been accepted and are on the table. Some of them have been rejected for a variety of reasons. Not the least of which is, again, from the fire rescue perspective, the majority of our emergency calls in any given year are in the quote-unquote compact area of town. And our response time to that area generally is pretty good from here. We are part of the compact area of town, if you will. Looking at other locations as part of this process, yes, we'd be looking at a new facility, state-of-the-art, with all the facilities and so forth that we discussed earlier. But in the end, would generally increase the response time to the majority of our calls, and that, I don't think anybody would think that's a good move. So for us to stay on this site works, again, for a number of reasons once we address the space issue. And that, as step one, I think, is what basically we're here to talk about today and moving forward towards town meeting.
Yes, thank you very much. And one of the other issues I want to discuss, of course, is cost. Right? We're very cost focused. We're very cost centric on this. We want the best deal for the taxpayer money, and clearly, using land that we already own saves the taxpayer money. We have looked at other sites. We have looked at sites downtown. We can't purchase that. The vendor doesn't want to sell to us. They want it for a commercial purpose. So that took off a site that a lot of folks are talking about down around the Clock Plaza area. We looked at getting a building, the old Citizen Bank building. That came off the table when another organization bought that building out from under us before we had a chance to act. We looked at sites on 7-Eleven, one too far out, two not connected to town water sewer, three in a wetlands area, so we'd have to remediate a lot of the soil, very expensive propositions. We looked likewise sites down along Filterbed Road. Again, same issues. The road would have to be seriously remediated for our use. We'd have to connect water sewer. Building a road to satisfy the requirements for the police department or the fire or rescue department, again, very, very expensive proposition, adds cost to the building. So we decided that those probably weren't good ideas because we're trying to keep this cost reasonable because we're concerned about that. It is an important cost, is always an important factor. So we're trying to get the biggest bang for the buck, so to speak. We looked at 109A. We liked the area along 109A a lot. The problem is it's in a wetlands area. The soil and groundwork would have to be remediated. We'd have to put in a lot of drainage. That's very expensive. And then it's within a hazmat zone for Eastern Propane. That's where they manage their and keep their storage tanks for propane. And do they keep fuel oil up there too? Yes, they do. So that becomes a danger. That becomes a real danger for us if there was ever a leak or a situation, and it could potentially hazard the police department and Wolfeboro Central Dispatch. So we don't want that. You don't want to be taking out your police department because of a propane leak. That would be bad. One of the concerns I heard too about putting it on North Main Street is, it's too far away from the center of town. Well, not really. It's not that far. What the town of Wolfeboro is growing, and my officers are in and around town. I have officers in Sector A, I have officers in Sector B. We divide the town into two sectors. Sector A is principally the compact portion of town. Sector B is the more rural portion of town. My officers are in both sectors every day, around the clock. They're already there. So we're not screaming in and out of the station. My officers are already out on the road, and so when you call for service, they're there. So a lot of these issues that I've seen creep up in social media are just not valid. They're really not valid, and it's I think it's a lot of naysayers for whatever reason that are down on location, because it's change and they don't like it, and the information, and that's unfortunate, but the information has been on the town website. It's been on the town website for the better part of 2 years now. Former Selectman Paul O'Brien made sure that information, to include artist renderings and drawings and committee appointments and minutes and information, was on that before he left, and that information is there, so nobody should feel as though this is being done in secret or surreptitiously, because it's not. Captain, is there anything you want to say real quick?
Yeah. So after this little briefing that we're having here, what we're going to do is do a tour of the entire building, the police and the fire side. So everybody out there can understand the working conditions that we're inside the building, so they understand it better. Basically the space needs of what we put out there, and you can see what we have inside our side of the PD and the fire side. So we'll be doing that right after, and then later down the road, more. I would probably do it more in July, June. We'll do an open house for the building, where everyone can come inside and do tours. So we get a heck of a lot better understanding of the inside of this entire building.
If I might, I think we kind of glazed over it and perhaps didn't address it specifically. People have asked me, and I presume have asked everybody else here, well, what about just renovating the building on site and you both stay there? That was, to be honest, the first proposal that was studied going back to 2018 or so. And we put it in front of the architects, and frankly, they made it work. It's a tight site for both departments, as it is today, but even more so when you address the space requirements of both departments. However, when the cost estimates came in, we were north of $16 million. So I think I'm not speaking out of turn when I say none of us expected that would fly very far, which prompted further discussion and other alternatives, one of which is on the table today.
Yeah, and just to keep in mind something, though, I'm not an expert on this because I'm not a fireman, but I am going to stick my neck out. Police cruisers and equipment generally can be left outside, and often is, because it's designed that way. With fire equipment, it requires temperature control. The fire trucks, and I didn't know this until I asked the question. Fire trucks carry water, right? And I think just about all of our fire trucks carry water. Here, you heard the chief talk about he has this incredible capability because of new technology. And unlike the old days where you had a pumper truck and then you had a hook and ladder truck. Please forgive me if I'm using juvenile terms. And you had a utility vehicle and this and that. you had a single piece of equipment for a single function. But now all of our vehicles carry some sort of flavor of water designed to put out or treat different types of issues, whether it's a hazmat issue or an oil fire or a grease fire or some sort of chemical fire, whatever the case may be. Well, those vehicles got to be inside and they can't be left outside. And we're talking about something that isn't going to take, a couple 6 months to do, right, to complete. You're talking about a major restoration of this building, which is going to take a year or more, which means that the fire trucks would have to be staged somewhere and kept in a climate control environment. That's going to be very expensive. So again, we go back to, you heard the chief talk about, 16 million, and there was another number I saw, 12 million. That was the first number they came across, and it's when you start talking about double digits in the millions, I mean everybody, those are eye-popping numbers, right? It gets people's attention. I called it when Selectman O'Brien was a selectman. He and I would go back and forth. He'd call it eye-popping. I call it retina detaching. So yes, these are huge numbers, and we came up with a plan. And right now, with the numbers that we've had, as rough as they are, we're looking at, for a new police station, about 6.2 million. And included in that would be some restoration, immediate restoration for this building to address some of the major issues that this building has that we know of. And then, slowly going at this building in phases to keep the costs palatable with the taxpayer and to address the issues that need to be addressed. And we feel that we can do that. It's a cost-effective approach. It's a time-phased approach, which makes a lot of sense. And more importantly, the fire equipment doesn't have to leave. Chief, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. I think going back to, we talked about earlier, the original thought or concept, the original proposal to completely renovate and add on to this facility for both of us here at 251 South Main Street would result in us having to relocate, not for a week or two, but for an extended period of time, which runs into significant money. The town really doesn't own another facility that would have the space for us to bring our vehicles inside, particularly in the wintertime, and allow it to continue to function for its original purpose. I know the highway garage has been discussed and so forth. Well, the highway garage is needed for highway purposes. I mean, I don't know how else to say it. It would not work particularly well to relocate us to another facility, and it also involves expense. Because not only do you have to relocate the equipment, you'd have to relocate the people who run the equipment. Or looking at office trailers or converting a building, it all adds up to more money. Which is why, although some of the solutions that have been discussed may seem more simple or more palatable, when you really dig into them, in a lot of cases, they're really not.
And that's the key point. That's the key takeaway here. The key takeaway is that this committee, made up of members of the Budget Committee, members of town government, members of the Board of Selectmen, members of the Police Commission, the Police Department, the Fire Department, and citizens, private citizens, all looked at these issues, and they took it lockstep, and we had many discussions and kicked around many ideas. And it's more important to understand that the building committee made the decisions that they've made. The decisions were made by a committee, not by a single individual sitting in front of you. And I think the town manager can attest to that. If you want to go back and take a look at the minutes or ask the town manager certain questions, I think he'll be able to fill in whatever gaps that we have left out. So with that, and without further ado, we'll start. Chief, do you want to go first, and then we'll finish? Yep, and then we'll finish up on the police department side. Thank you very much.
Okay, so we talked a little earlier about our training / meeting room. In the other corner of it, if you will, is our training officer's office, which we've created in the last several years, and with a workstation, computer desk, and so forth. He keeps all our training records and that sort of thing. The door you see with the crash bar on it. That if you come into the front office of the front lobby of the Public Safety Building, on your right as you come in, you'll see a set of stairs that actually comes up to where we are to give you a better sense if you're trying to picture where we are in the building. What we're looking at now is on the fire rescue side of the building. This is our kitchen slash dining area. As most, I think, are aware, our firefighters work 24-hour shifts, so we're here literally 24/7, and as a result, we either bring or cook meals here on site, and this is where we do that, frankly. Of course, the ever-popular coffee maker. But this is our, again, our dining area, and off of it, you'll see our sleeping areas. Again, designed years ago when size and privacy and male-female concerns really weren't a concern. You can also see into the upstairs bathroom facility, which you can't see from here, is just to the right inside is the shower facility, a single stall stand-up shower. Again, generally works, but it only allows for one person at a time. If you're at shift change or after a particular incident where you feel the need to shower afterwards. And one of the things we've learned over these years is the concerns about occupational cancer in the fire service, and one of the primary means of mitigating that is to shower immediately on return from a fire incident. So we encourage that, but at the same time, we're kind of standing in line to do it. Obviously, a new facility will have the proper number of shower facilities and areas for staff to decon themselves and take care of themselves that way. Also, as part of this area, we have our one of our office spaces. A couple of the lieutenants' offices, they share an office. Since we work rotating shifts, generally speaking, other than on an overtime shift, there's one lieutenant on duty most of the time, and that person can work out of the office, and then they share a workstation with our others. As we come in from the lobby, this is on the first floor. This is generally the first thing you see when you come to the fire rescue department. And basically, this is our office area. First thing you find is the deputy chief's office is not occupied at the moment. Will be shortly, we hope. Our executive assistant, my office is in the corner. I'm standing in we call it the mail room, with the printer, copier, and some files, and where our members' physical mailboxes are when we distribute materials and things like that. As we come down the hall, we're bearing to the left. We're heading towards the apparatus bay. On our left is the downstairs bathroom. Again, it's just I guess we'd call it a half bath, no shower facility, just toilet and a sink. And then if we come over here, this is, we call it the fire alarm room. This is actually where back in the day, if you remember the old Gamewell fire alarm system on the utility poles around town and so forth, the guts of that system was located in here. We decommissioned that a few years ago, and then in 2021 we're able to finally remove the last of the equipment. And what we hope to do, if we're successful in the budget this year, in the public safety building budget, we have a little bit of money set aside to clean this up and hopefully create perhaps another office or a workstation for our members to come in and be able to do online training and enter reports after incidents and after medical calls and things of that nature. So that's kind of still in the works, if you will. And as we come further down, you can see what we call the day room, which is where, in a lot of cases, in between calls and so forth, we'll spend some time in here. It's the area where our fireside radio communications are primarily located. It's also a spot where the duty officer can come in and enter run reports after incidents and things of that nature. Also, little things like the controls for the overhead doors out at the out in the apparatus bay. But this is what we call our day room. We do spend a fair amount of time here in between calls, getting, as you might imagine, after incidents, there's we still call it paperwork. It's all computerized now for the most part, but there are things to do. And based on the complexity of the call, it could take anywhere from 15 or 20 minutes to an hour or more to do an incident. And if it was a fire of any significance, it may take several hours to get a run report and proper documentation put together and so forth. We're now in the apparatus bay on the fire side of the public safety building. And kind of what you see is what you get. We do have, and we'll get a better shot of it here in a bit, but we do have boat 1 is in here at this point. We are awaiting a call from one of our vendors who's going to do some repair work over the winter. So that normally wouldn't be here, although in a renovated facility, we'd probably plan on being able to keep our seasonal apparatus, if you will, on site to save the storage fees, if nothing else, over time. Again, we talked about it earlier. The apparatus space is not really the prime mover in this whole thing for us, although it is obviously an issue. The other part that we hope to address in this scenario, as you can see, the slab on the apparatus bay floor has some cracks in it. It over time has shown some degree of settling. One of the things we'd like to accomplish with this is to kind of investigate that and determine what sort of repair might need to be affected for that, if it indeed does. And with a future project, perhaps address that in some sort of a permanent manner. What you're seeing now is one of our storage areas. We always refer to this as the protective equipment storage area. Some of it is, it's all personal protective equipment, but some of it is more of the medical background, if you will, and some of it is for structural fires and things like that. But this is where we try to keep things as clean as possible and ready to be deployed. In this day and age of COVID, we've got a lot of our gloves, disposables, gloves, masks, that kind of thing. Generally speaking, we store them in here and deploy them either onto the apparatus or to individuals as needed. This is the inside of our hose tower, which, as you can see, kind of becomes a catch-all. But this is where, for example, we come back from a fire incident, we can unroll the hose that was used, hang it on this rack, and raise it roughly 30 feet. It drains, and there's a fan up in the top of the tower that draws dry air up through it, and a day or two later, hose is dry. To be honest, newer stations, they generally don't build with hose towers anymore, other than for maybe sentimental reasons or historical reasons. The newer styles of hose can be repacked wet, and that's typically what's done these days, so you kind of eliminates the need for a hose tower. It tends to be one of the more expensive parts of a new fire station. I think that might have something to do with it too. So obviously we have it, we use it, but it, if we were to build from scratch, you probably wouldn't see it. So anyway, as you might imagine, it also becomes kind of a catch-all for stuff that's not necessarily used on a daily basis. But we do have the ability to come back from an incident and stretch our hose out in here and hang it up to dry, and in a couple of days we take it down, re-roll it, and it's ready to go for the next time. What you're looking at now is our gear extractor. What that is basically an industrial strength washing machine that we use to wash our bunker gear, our firefighter protective clothing. As you can imagine, after a fire incident or some kind of hazardous materials incident, it tends to be pretty nasty. So that machine is dedicated solely to contaminated gear and things like that. As we look over here to our right, you'll see more of a standard residential washer dryer, and that's essentially exactly what they are. We talked earlier about our growing knowledge and concern with occupational cancers in the fire service. One of the things we've been able to implement over the years is our staff, generally speaking, comes in for shift in civilian clothes. Their duty uniforms and stuff all stay here. They get changed here. And we're able to wash our duty uniforms and stuff in this washer and dryer. It's dedicated to that, sheets and pillowcases, bed linens, and that sort of thing. Stuff that's not necessarily contaminated with the products of combustion and the things that we're learning more and more about how they cause cancer. So we've been able to implement a policy, like I said, in the last few years, where we can kind of isolate all that equipment and use it in the manner in which it's designed, and at the same time prevent or help prevent the idea of bringing contaminated stuff home and spreading contaminants, poisons, and what have you to family and friends and your own vehicle and that sort of thing. We try to keep fire stuff here at the fire station. What we're seeing now is the back portion, if you will, of the apparatus bay. By way of creating a benchmark, if you will, these trucks are facing the library. So if you're looking at our building and the library from South Main Street, library is on the left side, these trucks are all facing out towards the library. You got engine 4 right here, engine 2 right next to it. You can't quite see around there, but our hazmat trailer you'll see right in front of us. We back in the utility vehicle and pull that to wherever we need it. Same with the snow machine and the rescue toboggan. Should we have an off-road incident in the wintertime, especially this time of year, with all the use of our snowmobile trails and our recreational snowshoe trails and the cross-country ski trails and all that sort of thing. If we need to access a patient, we can do that. But again, that creates a place or a space needs issue to some degree here at the Public Safety Building. Again, if we, down the road, add on, reconfigure the space, that would be something where we could store it. In the summer, we don't typically use the snow machine, but we're using the boat. In the winter, we don't use the boat, but we more likely want immediate access to the snow machine. So that would be, again, something we could look at going forward. Here in the back corner of the building, up against the wall on the left, is our cascade system, which is a fancy way of saying it's the device that refills our air bottles when we come back from an incident where we've used our breathing apparatus and so forth. This is where we fill the tanks. Beyond that is the gear dryer. We talked about the gear extractor and how we use it after a call to remove all the contaminants from our gear and so forth. That's essentially a cabinet dryer for our protective gear. So once it comes out of the washing machine, it generally takes 24 to 36 hours to really get it thoroughly dry. You can also see a lot of our water rescue equipment, dry suits, wetsuits, scuba bottles, that sort of thing, all lined up here and ready to go. And also a workbench where we keep spare breathing apparatus bottles and have our other equipment ready to go at a moment's notice. as you come around again, we're now facing South Main Street from the rear of the property. You see where the engines are located and so forth. We do have a little bit of a, we call it the gym. We do have a Smith rack that was donated to us by a former resident, and a stationary bike and that sort of thing. As you can imagine, in our business, physical fitness is a priority. What we tend to do is very labor intensive and can be very strenuous. One of the concerns, we talk about occupational cancers and so forth, but the leading cause of death for firefighters in the U.S. annually as a result of incidents tends to be cardiac related. So we encourage our members to do what they can to use the facilities that we have to maintain a degree of physical fitness, and many of them are obviously active outside of here to try to do that as well.
Hi, I'm Chief Rondeau, and welcome back to our visual tour of the Public Safety Building at 251 South Main Street. So right now we're in the police lobby, and you can take a look around, and you know, lobbies is actually kind of cramped. You know, we've got our medicine drop box right here. We got places for sharps if you want to get needles. Dispatch window is here. That looks into our very busy command post. In there, you have the entrance to the police department on the left-hand side, and then, you know, the public safety unisex toilet, and then, of course, you just came from the fire rescue department, and here are the stairs moving up to the training room where we began this. One of the things, this is actually probably one of the more roomier areas of the building. When you, I hope you picked up when you're inside the fire side, now on the police side, the corridors are really narrow. And you certainly can't pass two people down the corridors at the same time in opposite directions. But I want you to pay attention to that, because on the police side, oftentimes in the building, we'll have dangerous people. People that we've arrested, people that might be argumentative, people that might be angry. And we need to be able to have room to deal with them. If they should get out of hand, and I hate to say it like that, not that that's what we're looking forward to, we're not, but it does happen. And the narrowness of the hallways doesn't allow us very much safety.
Let me just add a piece here. So this is the public area where you come in through the front door, which most people are familiar with this general area here. But this is also our area when we have an arrest. We actually have to come through this way too, with the public here, and we have to watch out for the safety of the others while we do this. Our facility doesn't allow us to come through the garage. When you see the garage, you'll see that. So we're going to head toward the corridor right into the police department.
Who's after you? Okay, so follow me right this way. You got it, sir? Okay. All right, so right now, if you just want to follow me, just walk right down here. This is the corridor. This is, you know, you can see how narrow the walls are. You know, I'm not a very big guy, but I can easily reach out and touch both walls without doing very much of anything at all. To the left, over here, you're going to see our interview room. This is where, if we do have arrests or prisoners, this is where they come in, and they'll be interviewed, and we'll take information from them. As you can see, it's awfully confined, very cramped. Moving right this way is the old jail cell. So earlier I was talking about nothing is to code, or very few things are left to code in this building. This is an area which is not, I say again, not up to code. It's not up to state code. It's not up to federal code. We can't maintain prisoners back here anymore. Back when I first started here almost 26 years ago, we could. That's just the rules and regulations about how and where we put people have changed. Same thing on the fire side. How they deal with the carcinogens from coming back from fires has changed. All right, it's evolved, right? So this is the old jail cell. It's really right now it's wasted space. It's not easily renovatable. You see back here, we've turned this one into a storage facility because we're out of space. So things back here are cramped. They're it's just not very useful. It's not a very useful facility for us at this point in time. It did do its job. It did it very well back in 1972 or 1974, but it's really outlived its usefulness at this point. So please follow me back here, and we're going to go into the to what is called the officer squad room. Well, first here is the detective's office, and it's just awfully cramped. I don't want you to. He's got some papers and stuff laying out there, but it's awfully cramped for the detective. Certainly doesn't have any ability to interview anybody in his office. This is my personal favorite on these. I want to show you something right here. So this is this is it, right? Yeah, let me do that again just in case you didn't look at this, okay? Yeah. So you can't open up the doors in either one of these two bathrooms without hitting the sink, all right? You have to kind of come in at an angle. And again, it's very confined. It's very cramped. And there's same thing with the ladies' room right here. You're gonna bang right into the sink. We have 3 shifts moving around the clock with both dispatchers and police officers. So this side of the building sees an awful lot of activity, an awful lot of personnel. So right this way. So we took advantage of a grant probably a good 20 years ago. We were able to update and at least come into compliance with then existing regulations on evidence storage. But under the new policing models outlined in CALEA, which is what the state is moving toward, even this system is antiquated and outdated. So one of the comments I made to the Board of Selectmen several years ago, which still holds true, if the Police Commission, Wolfeboro Police Commission, were going to hold me to a standard of maintaining or achieving CALEA, which is a professional standards granting organization, which is something I do want to do. I do want to, this department, because I know our policies and procedures are very good. I know we can achieve it. I think it'll be some effort, but we can do it. It's certainly a very doable task. But right now I can't do it because of this building. This building holds me back because it doesn't meet the bare minimum requirements I need for any type of state or federal professional standard certification. So our evidence room is actually modernized, reasonably speaking, about 10 or 12 or so years ago in that neighborhood. So it's actually in pretty good shape. Come on in here the rest of the way, and let's take a look at the officer squad room so you can see how cramped we are back here. Captain?
Yeah, so this is, as he calls it, it's a multi-purpose room. As you see, we have a kitchenette. So the officers and dispatch have a little area that they have a sink, a fridge,
which doubles as our evidence processing area.
Yeah, so you have that too.
There you have it.
As you see, the lockers are all down here. So this is a locker room, but unfortunately, you cannot change around here due to the fact there's cameras all on this first floor. But there is no other space for these lockers to be placed in. Plus, there's also 2 offices that are in this general area behind this locker room space that we put 2 sergeants are back here. So this is their office space. And there's a officer's basically little space area to do paperwork in the corner when he flows it right down there on the other side of those lockers. So this is a challenging room. We've made it the best we could with what we have, and made the best use out of it. But this is a tight room. The officer's got to be close near the evidence room to do the evidence processing, to label it, to put it in the evidence locker, and get it to the evidence management, who takes care of that, which is our juvenile officer. But then you have these 2 office spaces that we kind of built here against the wall for some space here for them, the 2 sergeants. It's actually Sergeant Sparrow and Sergeant Bulio. That's their office space, along with the kitchenette that's over here. It's, like I said, it's a multi-purpose room.
So in so much as I think someone's going to watch this video and go, whoa, that's really good. The police are multitasking, multi-purpose. That's good. Well, no, not in this instant. You don't want to be fixing food anywhere near where you're trying to process evidence, right? So hopefully you all picked up on the sarcasm in there, right? That's one thing you don't want to do. That's a recipe for disaster. So these are the issues that we're trying to work with, and we're just simply out of space here. Like I said, we've outgrown this building, and we've outgrew it years ago.
So he mentioned behind this door is a little evidence room. It's not that big. It's probably half the space of this. So it stores some, but not a lot. But it does the job for us here. We also have an upstairs area where there's a closet, which we'll get to, which stores our ammunition for evidence, all firearms and stuff like that. We can't do it in here. There's not enough room. So we had to use a different area that's video locked up, and so we'll show you that in a little while. But now we'll head back to the hallway where dispatch is and show you that. Actually, do you want to do the Sally?
Yeah, let's do the Sally Port. So we're going to take you into the Sally Port, and so come on in. So this is the Sally Port. It's and you see our Tesla right here is charging up. So the Sally Port is an area where the cruiser is like a garage. Now, theoretically speaking, the way this should work is that the officer has an arrest, the officer brings the prisoner into the Sally Port, the door is closed, now the prisoner is secured inside, except that when you've got a second vehicle, which is, you know, where I'm standing, would be where I'm standing, there's no room to maneuver. There's no room to open up the doors. You're banging into other vehicles, you're banging into other equipment that may be against the walls or leaning against the back wall, or trash that may be waiting to be taken out to the dumpster. This is a very, very narrow and confined space that doesn't serve the purpose that it was intended to do. This was, again, remember, the police department being in this building was an afterthought. And I can't imagine that this area met code back in 1972 or 1974, whenever the police department moved in. Yes, I do understand that getting the police department out of town hall was an important factor in this, and it was better than what the officers had at that time. I totally agree. Yes, I understand it. But 50 years later, or near 50 years later, it's time to it's really time to move on, move out. You see above us, we've done the best we can, try to be creative. We built some storage. We have some big bulk items and seized items that are up there for storage. We're trying to do the very best we can with the space that we have. Please, right this way, and let's take a walk down toward the dispatch center. Captain, can you let them know we're coming in, and maybe they can blank the screens? Can I come in? Okay, come on in. So probably about 10 years ago or more, we went through a series of renovations, and this was one of the facilities that received some renovation. This is our dispatch center. This is very busy in here. I'll let you pan around. Right now I have 3 dispatchers in here. I have 2 senior dispatchers, and I have 1 dispatch supervisor sitting on the other side of that cubby, and she's listening and checking and making sure everything gets done. Her systems are tied into everything that these 2 dispatchers, senior dispatchers, are doing right now. You see the number of systems that they're tracking and bringing up on the computer screen. Over here on the far left-hand side, you'll see where we have video monitoring capability, not just within this building, but also in external areas around the building and also other areas around town that are problematic. So dispatch is doing an awful lot, but you can see how busy they are right now. But look how busy it is, and look how cramped that they are. And be mindful, these dispatchers are here from anywhere between 8 to 10 hours or longer during a critical incident a day. So that's why you see break things here like a refrigerator and coffee maker and microwave oven and water dispenser, because they need to be able to take a break and still listen and monitor the computer banks, the video banks, respond to police and fire communications, and also track what's going on in and around town. Please, right this way. Follow me. This is in here is. Do you wanna?
I do.
Yeah. So I got one of my corporals moving out. I have 3 beings in this room. I have a sergeant, a corporal, and a K9 that are cramped in here, and you can shoot pin this way. And so this is very active in here as well. This is where the sergeant who's doing double duty as both a K9 officer and a police supervisor, patrol supervisor, is doing an awful lot of work. So please follow me right this way, and we'll head over to the prosecutor's office. This way. Oops, sorry. So, if you were watching that, you just saw the captain and I bang into each other because you can't. This is awfully cramped. Now, police officers typically don't tend to be very thin people. Okay, they tend to be a little bit bulky. So. It is what it is, right? And so we're always bumping into each other and catching each other at our duty belts or whatever. But you can see this office. I have my senior sergeant in here, and I have my prosecutor in here. And again, this gets to be very busy. It's difficult for him to carry on and do the work he needs to do, whether he's talking to suspects or defendants or witnesses or interviews. With officers. It's difficult for this officer to do his work and have to supervise his personnel. And he has the hardest job because he's got about the vast majority of the police department that he's responsible for. And then reporting to my captain and myself. But this room gets very busy throughout the course of the day. And the point I made earlier is we literally are living on top of each other. Please follow me right this way up the stairs. So you're looking down the stairs right now. Again, you see how narrow the stairway is. So if you follow me this way, this room is actually come on in, as cramped as this room is. This is doubling as both the police department conference room and officer workstations. You see a number of workstations around. We ripped out everything that we had here a few years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, Captain, was it? And we did a complete remodel of this room. And over here on the wall, you'll see the TV and the video conferencing camera. Fortunately, that was in place about 6 months to a year before COVID-19 hit. So that was a cost savings move. We did it originally for training purposes, so we wouldn't have to be paying officers mileage and travel. We could conduct training, and they could sign on from their home computers, and it came in very handy during COVID-19. So we're very lucky that we had the foresight to do that. But even with all the workspaces that we have, we still have officers that don't have permanent workstations, that have to hot desk or hot seat and get work done. It's just the nature of the beast right now. But this room is actually not in bad shape or too bad a shape. a few years ago, there was some, you might be able to see some shadows where we had ceiling leaks and issues, but a lot of that has been remediated. But we did put a little bit of money into this to try to get it as usable. One of the things that you'll see is you will see a lot of equipment and boxes and things laying around. It's because we're out of storage space. We have no place to put this equipment or gear that comes in. So oftentimes it has to sit with the officer who ordered it or who needed it.
And what else this actually does is you saw the locker room that was downstairs, and nobody can change downstairs. So a lot of officers come in their plain clothes and they change while they get to the PD. As you saw, most of that tour downstairs, we don't even have a shower or facility for capabilities of that on our side of the building. So there is no showers. There's nothing like that. That's what we're hoping for the new place. But this is really their space to bring the stuff from the locker room up to here so they can actually physically change before their shift starts. So it does make it hard for a lot of our officers not having a locker room, a multi-purpose, where, not a multi-purpose, but a female's and a male's locker room, and we don't have any of that here.
Yeah, that's a really good point. You know, so I do have one female officer right now. In the past, we've had upwards of 3 female officers at one point in time. We have, female dispatchers, obviously. We have no place for them to wash up. We have no place for them to really change or to get out of, especially if they've been here for a long period of time, get out of their clothes or put on fresh clothing. Obviously, during a crisis or an emergency, we're going to be here for extended periods of time. What the captain said is true. The shower facilities that once were here were taken out long ago to make space for the evidence room or to expand the kitchenette area downstairs.
Yeah, and what you saw downstairs is when we came in from that main lobby area, you are in the PD. I mean, you have open access to everything. It shouldn't be like that. It should never be like that. So when we bring a prisoner in, or just somebody that we have to interview or meet with due to an investigation, again, we don't know that individual. The name of that individual may have popped up, and we want to do an interview with them. We still have to do that downstairs where you saw that interview room. Now, once they access this PD right now,
Full access to the entire
the whole police department, the dispatch room, you saw there's no doors that lock that up. They do have a door, but I mean, you could break it down pretty easily. And so that's what we're trying to fix, those problems that you'll see in there. But I mean, that's the major concern, is that when you come into this PD, you can access the entire side.
And that includes the fire side too. They can easily get through from the second floor onto the fire side. We don't want that. So please follow me this way. So right here is a dispatch recorder. This is actually a fairly antiquated piece of equipment. It's going to be going out of service here shortly. We were able to purchase a new one last year. We're just waiting for it. But this is a recording system. This actually records many of our phone lines and radio communications. This ought to be in a secure facility in and of itself, but it's not. It's not because, again, we're out of room up here. This is my office. So we did put a little bit of money into these upstairs offices not too long ago, and so they are, they're holding up. They're narrow. They're small. They're certainly efficient, but so not too bad. Of course, that doesn't see the activity that the downstairs sees. So next, over here, I'll focus on the left-hand side. You're going to see firearms, locker storage. This is really nothing more than a closet that's been converted to an armory. This is probably not the best fit for a facility like this. This is a uniform equipment storage closet, and over here is the radio room. This in and of itself raises a lot of issues. There's a lot of very sensitive equipment in here. You can see that it's all really been jam-packed. There's not a lot of airflow. We've had issues with overheating and noise throughout the course of the year. But again, this building was never designed to deal with the amount of automated data processing equipment that we require in 2022. So you have something like this. Now, these systems are very, very expensive. And, you know, they ought to be in a much more, climate-controlled room than put in as an afterthought in a closet. To your right, you'll see the captain's office. Again, we put a little bit of money into the upstairs offices not too long ago. They don't see the level of activity that the downstairs see. Actually, look pretty good. So right this way, this is our administrative executive assistant's office. She's not right here. She's after duty hours for her. But again, the same thing here. Now, there are a lot of, if you want to come on in here, there are a lot of exposed cords and things. That's because a lot of the ADP equipment and cable lines and data lines were all put in as an afterthought. So again, these are issues, right? And they all need to be remediated. Not the best model, but we're making do with what we can. One of the things that you didn't see is a records room. Okay, that's because we really don't have one. We have a Connex, a shipping Connex, which is like a you would see on a flatbed railroad car, and that's where our records are secured in there. So that means that when a citizen wants a past case that may not necessarily be with an officer, one of the officers has to go out and has to unlock that. We have to, paw through the dead files and the old reports to see, where it is, and that takes time. It's not the most efficient thing in the world. It's not a good model. Records are not. The records should be in a climate-controlled environment. We used to put them in the attic. Let me show you the attic. The attic has certainly seen better days. But this is the attic, and but it was a fire hazard. We couldn't put them in the attic. So again, that's empty now. We had to move everything into Connexes probably about 10 years ago. And this is not the best fit. You don't want your records in non-climate controlled environments, but unfortunately that's the situation that we find ourselves. So I hope you enjoyed your tour, your virtual tour here of the Wolfeboro Police Department and the Wolfeboro Fire Rescue and the Public Safety Building. The building is old, it's tired. We've been in it approximately 48 to 50 years this year. It depends on if you want to say that we moved in 1972 or 1974, but it was in that neighborhood, somewhere between those two dates. I thought it was 1972.
And the difference of a public safety building is that it's in use 24 hours a day. So that's a big difference than all our town halls or other public buildings that we do have. They're not open 24/7. So this building is used from midnight starting at 12:01 to the midnight at the end. Somebody's in here, somebody's through this. We're using the building. It's 24/7. We're open 24/7. This building is basically in use 24/7 with our officers and dispatchers.
Yeah, depending on the shift, you could be talking between dispatch and police department. You could be talking anywhere from 2 to 6 people per shift, 3 shifts a day, round the clock, weekends, holidays included. And I know I say that, and people automatically say, "Yeah, I know that." But because even though people hear me say that, they don't really understand what that means. That's a lot of people constantly around the clock in this building. Then you have details, you have overtime, you have grants, you have special missions, you have critical incidents. The 1st of January, we had we had a critical incident where personnel were asked to stay a little bit longer than normal. So again, these things are commonplace with the Wolfeboro Police Department. We see a lot of activity all the time. So I just want you to keep that in the back of the mind. This is a 24/7 hour operation. It is moving around the clock, and there's a lot of people coming in and going out through those front doors. Captain, anything else?
Yeah, so basically, I hope you get a better understanding of this virtual tour. I know everyone's wanting to get into this building on why we need it and the need of it, not the want, the need of the space needs, and why we need a new building. I get it. When you look at it from the street, you look at this building, it does look like a great building, and that's why there is a process to remodel this building. That's the purpose of it, to save money and to keep this building in use. So the goal is to basically, when we get to June, July, the warmer months, hopefully COVID's pretty much looking behind us, and we'll get tours in here, maybe 4 to 5 people at a time, to give you a better understanding of why inside here, other than this virtual tour on TV, you'll be able to walk through this whole building with an officer or one of us and give an explanation again on each use of each area that we do have.
So having said that, I just want to wrap this up. I hope you will support Warrant Article 23 again. That is to help to develop, to hire a contractor, architect and builder to develop construction grade diagrams for the construction of a police department. Now, once we have those diagrams, it really matters not where the building goes. The diagrams are good. Sure, we want to get it right the first time, and we want the building to go in on North Main Street. We think that's the most appropriate location. It certainly helps keep the costs down. But even if it doesn't go on to North Main Street, the building diagrams are still very viable. So having said that, again, construction grade diagrams. These are different from drawings and architects' renditions that are on the website right now. Thank you very much again. I'm Chief Dean Rondeau for the Wolfeboro Police Department. Thank you.